afternoon and welcome to the Hull and Humber Chamber of Commerce podcast that we've shortened to the Chamber of Secrets podcast, to the latest episode on this freezing cold blue sky day in January. I'm delighted to be joined by Martijn Gilbert, the Managing Director of Hull Trains. Hi, Martijn.
Hi, Richard. Great to be on.
And we accidentally have ended up with the same background. So, we did not send each other a memo about that. I'm just, keen to point that out.
No, it's a great picture, of course. Really, a great picture of the region, actually, not only of our train, but obviously of the Humber Bridge, going through a very important part of our region. So, yeah, an iconic view, and I think very fitting for this podcast.
Absolutely, and I think on mine there's a little bit of frost on there, which is probably in keeping with today. It's about -7 where I'm sitting, hence I've got my out to sea sweater on. So apologies for the trawler men watching this, but you've got to keep warm. So and happy New Year, Martijn. I mean, I guess this is the start of another business year. It's always a great time to reflect backwards and look forwards. Tell us a little bit about what you're looking forward to from a Hull Trains perspective for 2025.
Happy New Year to you too, and yeah, a great start to the year. Likewise, Hull Trains, I think it's fair to say, has continued to play an increasingly important part in the connectivity of the region. That helps fuel economic growth and all sorts of other things that we've seen happening. We ourselves are a chunky employer in the region. We've got, I think we're now up to 131 colleagues now based here in our city centre office, and a whole sort of supply chain piece that's linked to that as well. We've increasingly done a lot of work, including our catering of working with local suppliers. We've got River City Coffee, we've got Atom Brewery, we've got Lister's Crisps. We've just done some stuff with Cartwright and Butler. So again, some really proud Hull and East Yorkshire brand names that we're working with on board our service. And we've seen phenomenal growth year on year. We've added another 25% greater train mileage capacity into services over the past year. But more importantly than that, this year, 2025, will be the 25th anniversary of Hull Trains. So a huge milestone for what was Britain's first open access rail operator. We aren't part of the government's franchise regime. We're not part of that nationalisation agenda. We're a private company operating at our own commercial risk in a very entrepreneurial way. We were the first of our kind when this business launched in 2000, and we'll be celebrating the 25th anniversary of that this year. So yeah, lots to celebrate, lots to continue delivering, and I'm just really keen that we continue to play our part in the region, in connecting the region, and all of that, of course, is down to the great work of our fantastic team. I'm very, very proud of all of our colleagues here at Hull Trains, and the most consistent piece of feedback that I get is not just about the fact that we've got new trains and a very reliable service that you can depend on, but also a very, very, very friendly service on board from our colleagues.
Yeah, well, 25 years is quite a milestone because my wife tells me that we've been married 25 years this year as well. So maybe I will book her a ticket on Hull Trains as a 25th wedding anniversary.
Joint celebration. Congratulations.
See if that gets me to 26. We'll see. I mean, you never know with these things, do you? But that really is amazing. And I think, the landscape that you just sort of painted there of that independent operator operating in what is largely a very massive national infrastructure sort of world. It's quite remarkable that A, you can do that, and B, you continue to do that and grow. It must be quite hard at times when you look at the big national story of what people think of the railways, because you see something completely different, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, look, the Labour is going through the renationalisation of the main part of the railway. That will only actually be 3/4 of train miles on the UK rail network. 25% will still be in the hands of other operators, be it devolved local governments such as London or Merseyside or Scotland or Wales. Us as open access operators, our sister business Lumo, and another open access operator that's owned by Arriva, Grand Central, who run trains to Sunderland and Bradford. So they're and then there's freight as well. So there will be parts of the railway that aren't part of the nationalised agenda. Lots going on at the moment with us making the case for how we fit in with that, how we can we don't just want to continue doing what we're doing, we want to do more of it. We've got plans to expand to Sheffield. We want to add further growth to what we do in Hull as well, and therefore making sure that the structure of the future of the railways continues to support and enable what we do. A lot of hard work and efforts going into that. It's a big thing that we're talking to stakeholders about, particularly political stakeholders who have an ability to talk about the forthcoming Railways Bill and Great British Railways. But at the heart of it, Great British Railways, Labour's initiative for improvements to the railways, sets out to deliver key things that benefit customers in terms of better services, more reliable trains and cheaper fares. We already do all those things. We're already there in terms of those things. We've got industry-leading 96% customer satisfaction score. So we just need to keep hammering home the message to say, well, actually, you could argue that Hull Trains is the benchmark because we have the lowest rate of cancellations of any UK train operator. We have the lowest delay causes that are down to our making. Railways, like any piece of infrastructure, are affected by weather-related things and occasionally in circumstances outside of our control. But things that we can control, again, very, very low levels of causes, high customer satisfaction, good value fares, a sizable part of our route. Once we join the main line from Doncaster and south, customers actually have choice of multiple operators between us and LNER and Grand Central, and we always try to offer the best value fare as well. So, and of course, that's not just about the piece from Doncaster south, because there are other options for customers coming across from Hull who can use local trains to Doncaster and then change on to others. So, this healthy mix of that drives innovation, drives improvements in customer service, and drives better value fares for customers, we think is a really important dynamic in the railway, and that we're very, very keen to not only keep what we've got, but do more of it. But yes, very interesting, as some might say, exciting times for the future of the railway, and a lot of efforts going into that political engagement piece and future structure at the moment.
I do wonder, though, whether that's been communicated well enough, because, I didn't realise, and I'm sure a lot of people watching and listening to this today didn't realise, that when you hear the term nationalisation, you imagine it means all of it, because, largely as the layperson, you see the railways as an infrastructure project, and anything that runs on a rail is a railway, and anything that's been if the railways have been nationalised, it must be all railways. So, everything that you're saying is a brilliant illustration of how private companies and private capital can exist within a national infrastructure and do it well. We only ever get told, don't we, the negative stories of that side, and which is why the campaign for nationalisation was so strong against some other operators that I won't name on this podcast. But do you think it's been communicated well enough to the general public?
Well, look, the national narrative is the national narrative, and for most parts of the UK, it is nationalisation. The open access operators such as us are filling unique gaps in the market. So the nationalised model that existed pre-1995 delivered one direct train a day from Hull to London. The guys who founded Hull Trains saw a gap in the market and said, hang on a minute, that market is big enough to justify more if you have the right model, a lean, mean entrepreneurial machine that's a sort of private sector operator. There's a gap in the market, there's capacity on the network. We believe we can fill that and grow that in a way that the state-owned system simply couldn't justify, and will not be able to justify going forward either. There is still one state-provided train a day from Hull to London. There's now 8 direct trains a day from Hull to London, because our operation has grown from 2 trains to 5 trains to now 7 trains. We'd like to see that grow again in future. But this is only the case on 4 parts of the UK's rail network at the moment. Our route to Hull, our sister business Lumo's route to Newcastle and Edinburgh, and then Grand Central's routes to Bradford and to Sunderland. So through Wakefield and also through places like Eaglescliffe. So it isn't a national message, but I would like to think that the key people that need to know this in Hull and Humberside do understand the differences, because it's a big thing that they benefited from at the start in 2000. Privatisation had been in for about 4 years at that point. This was a big message to say, well, privatisation was really just about taking the former state railway with state-specified contracts let to private operators, but to still run that part of the railway. This is new, this is different, this is exciting. And we would like to see more of it across the rest of the UK. Our parent company has put in applications to start new new routes that would supplement the nationalised rail network from Carmarthen. And what we've got plans to start from Carmarthen and Tor Bay. We've got plans to start a route down the West Coast main line from Stirling and Carlisle, and so Preston and Carlisle and Milton Keynes. And then we've got plans for applications in to take the whole trains route to the left of Retford to Sheffield via Worksop and Retford, and then also to start a new route from Rochdale to London as well. So I think it could become more of a national thing, but at the moment these are actually quite unique, localized stories.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Because we shouldn't confuse, and I'll speak on behalf of everybody, he says grandly, we shouldn't confuse a privatized national rail service with a private rail operator.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, they are different.
We've seen, the twos and fros and the ups and downs, and I, use the train a lot. So there's always ups, there's always downs. But a privatized national rail company or rail organization, you are a private operator on the national network.
Exactly. A privatised national operator is still operating a government contract that's still specified by the government. And that's what we've seen on the rest of the railway since 1995, is private operators operating government contracts. It's still the government specifying an awful lot of what happens on the railway. And that's why when some operators have already gone back to the government, there's actually not a huge fundamental change, because it's still the government specifying the contract. It's just the structure of how they're operated and who's ultimately the paymaster. But LNER and Northern trains, and more recently TransPennine trains, are all already fully owned government operators. In reality, for the customer on board, very little difference from when they were private operators operating government contracts. But the big change of the railway is yet to come, which is of the realignment of track and train, where actually it will be the same guiding stroke controlling minds running both the train services and the tracks. At the moment, we have Network Rail doing the track infrastructure and some of the stations, and then the operators running the trains. And it is thought that the bringing together of those will, it is the hope of the people working on this, that will deliver the improvements that those operators need to see. We're sitting here and saying, look, we've already got very good standard of service, good fare offers, good customer service, and we have a good way of working with Network Rail. Ultimately, as a fully private operator, without any subsidies, without any contracts, we're only successful if we carry people on our trains and do that in a financially sound way. And for me, that's rule number 101, service profit chain, which is about it starts with delivering a good customer offer, a good experience on board, good fares and pricing. That's how we earn our money. That's how we're successful, and that is well understood at all levels within this organisation, and has been in its throughout its 25-year history. Our team know that for us to be successful, we have to deliver a service. It has to be a good service.
Isn't it? A friend of mine once said to me, "It's quite simple, Rich. We do things and you give us money. It's quite simple." Business 101.
We want to do good things. We want to do good things. So yeah.
Absolutely. And you mentioned earlier on, and let's bring this back to a local perspective, Martin, if I may, and really sort of into the world of the Chamber of Commerce. What you mentioned earlier on about the collaborative relationships you have with local companies, local suppliers, and really Hull Trains as an organisation isn't. It feels as though it's. This sounds awful, but it feels as though it's local businesses helping local businesses, which is good, even though you operate on some scale. At your heart and in your ethos, you're seeing yourself as a local regional player, albeit in multiple regions. I think from a chamber perspective, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to get you on today to talk about how the Chamber of Commerce in our area, the Hull and Humber, can adapt, can improve, can acquire new members, can appeal to new voices, because they understand more about the way that business actually is happening in 2025, not necessarily a repeat of what it used to be. Anybody that says that's the way we've always done it usually is on their way to their own business funeral. So how do you find, certainly within the membership of Hull and Humber Chamber that you have, are they doing the right things? Could they do more? What's your view?
So look, we've been very proud members of the Chamber since before our first trains ever set on the track. So whilst I have only been in post here for just shy of 2.5 years, I've got great respect and understanding of the history of the company, and actually the Chamber was a very helpful voice in terms of helping support the case for setting up this business in the very first instance, now 25 years ago. And the team at the Chamber are still very supportive of what we do, and in terms of raising any particular local issues that we've had. Obviously, the electrification of the line to Hull is a big aspiration for everybody in the region. The Chamber always uses any opportunity it can to raise its voice on that. Our trains are ready to go. The new, not so new now because it's been in operation, but for some years, a couple of years now. But it sat almost mothballed during the pandemic. So really, it's kind of had a second wave of a launch as we've emerged from all that. But that train fleet is by mode. It's already electric capable enabled. We run on 100% electric once we get onto the electrified section of route. The green diesel engines are only to carry us on the short section of route through to Hull, and so therefore we'd love this electrification. There's other electric capable trains run into Hull by other operators. So on issues like that, they're absolutely locally focused. I think for me, look, great people, very friendly and passionate about the region. It would be good to see a more powerful national voice on national issues. My role is slightly wider than just Hull Trains. So although I'm here today as the Managing Director of Hull Trains, I actually look after a portfolio of 4 businesses across our owning group, including our sister open access operator Lumo, and therefore I have the experience of seeing across other chambers of commerce and the sort of caliber and impact of their voice and some of the speakers that they have at their events and such like, and everything needs to be proportional to the size of its membership in its region. But I think we have a really good story to tell here, not just in the city but in the wider region. We've got some fascinating stuff going on here. I was in Gaul recently at the Siemens plant, seeing some of the regeneration there, some of the stuff that's going on with new jobs, and Hull Trains, I think, has a really important role to play in that, in terms of being at the centre of things. We provide a good, sustainable travel option that links us to our capital city and many other destinations on the route. Forget driving; it's a nightmare. Flying isn't particularly sustainable. Of course, I'm biased, but the train is the way to go, and we offer I'm very proud to say a good service, and many people see that. And the world is changing. So yes, business travel is not to the level that it was. But interestingly, I mean, we're seeing now. I was on one of our trains recently speaking to somebody who has managed to get a job in Hull and commutes to Hull from London because of remote working, and they live in London. So they do 3 days a week at home, and there's green shoots in all of this. And I think if we can have a chamber that's perhaps a bit more digital, a bit more aligned to some of the changing trends in society, and can really power up the voice to get the very best for the region. Everything's changing at a very rapid pace of knots, and so therefore so must we. But look, we are talking about an organisation that's built on solid foundations of people who are very passionate about the region, long histories, and some great achievements in its history books. We just need to keep that fresh and moving going forward, and we as a member stand ready to play our part in that. We do a lot across the communities that we serve. I'm very passionate that we're not just a train company that just happens to have an office and that's it. You don't really know what goes on behind that office. We absolutely get out from that office, and we make sure that we're at the right events with the right people, but also I'm very passionate that we play an active part in the communities that we serve, that we're a train company with a face and with a human voice, and this is important not just to me as the leader of this organisation, but to our team as well, because they are residents. They are part of the community as well, as are our customers. So this year alone, I think we're now in something like our 4th year of being one of the sponsors of Humber Street Sesh. We've got long-standing sponsorship arrangements with the rugby club. We've just done some stuff with the football club this year. We've done Pride again. We're on our 3rd year of sponsoring Hull Pride. We've done the comedy festival. We even had some of the comedy festival on board the train to do some live interactive performances. We now have our charity of the year initiative this year. We're working with the Yorkshire Wildlife Trust, We proudly carry their logo on board our trains, and we've done countless charitable and community engagement activities. Now that's on a different level to what a Chamber of Commerce exists for, which is a sort of more economic and political and business focused angle. But I think they're good examples of the strength of the community here, and how this is a really great place to do business, but how we need to continue to attract that inward investment. We need to continue to make strong, compelling cases for investment in our infrastructure, such as rail electrification, such as other infrastructure schemes. Obviously, we've got some meaty stats around the economic importance of things like the port, and some of the industrial activity that goes on in the region as well. So we've got a good story to tell. We just need to make sure we're continuing to tell it in the right way, and that importantly, the key leaders of that are brought together in the right form and are having the right discussions and are working together.
Yeah, no, and Chamber, of course, is a great doorway into those conversations for anybody listening to this or watching this, wondering. This is why I call it the Chamber of Secrets, because I don't think an awful lot of people know what it is there for, or what it does. But within that, there is an ever evolving situation that they can absolutely and do across the country lead on to allow businesses to get that sense, that picture that you're describing today, which is hugely positive. The problem is when people don't understand that, and they only hear the negativity in the media, and they don't hear the reality and the positivity that comes from that reality. And Chamber, as you say, is one of those many ways that you can find that sort of positivity out. Martin, I'm going to let you go in a couple of minutes, but I've got one question for you, because I sit on the other side of the Humber Bridge, on the south side, and you mentioned green trains there, and of course the Humber and the Hull and Humber area is the UK home really of renewable energy. If we are to truly connect that estuary together, is it time to build the railway bridge next to that road bridge over there?
Wow, that's there is a good public transport link across it. My previous role was as managing director of Go Ahead's Yorkshire and North East bus operations. So East Yorkshire Buses, which part operated one of the routes over that bridge, was part of my portfolio. Look. Any link needs to be proportional to the amount of demand, and I think a good first step would be to see if there's some enhancements that can be delivered to that bus link service, actually, in terms of frequency, perhaps electric buses, something like that, as a prelude to making the case for something that would need a lot more in terms of infrastructure commitments, and most importantly cost, such as rail. We as an open access operator, our business case works on intercity, longer distance routes connecting to capital cities, really. So London and Hull's the city, Newcastle, Edinburgh, the places I've mentioned before. So I think for us, we that wouldn't be on our radar as a potential market. That's a bit more of a local or a regional service. But talking as with some degree of local insight, what more can be made of people. It might sound bizarre that here's a rail operator talking about buses, but actually, there are plenty of examples across the UK where the building of bus services has in turn been the sort of catalyst of a market to say, and how do we now power it up by making it a tram or a train or something like that? And knowing that link is already there, but probably knowing that isn't well promoted, and is as much made of it as it could be. I'd like to see some stuff done with bus or bus rapid transit, first of all, that could hub into railways.
There you go. Sorry, I threw that in just as a.
Oh, I like it. Great question.
Just because I've been sat here staring at this picture of the bridge, and and I know in it's Edinburgh, I guess, isn't it? And over the Forth, there's like 100 bridges, and the Thames and what have you. Here we are sitting in this economic potential powerhouse of the Humber, and there's only one way across it, and that just is. I'm old enough to remember the ferry. Don't tell anybody. But it's one for thought, I think, and maybe discussion at the next meeting of the Chamber of Commerce, Martin. Listen, thank you so much for being my guest today on the Chamber of Secrets podcast. Martijn Gilbert, Managing Director of Hull Trains, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you to listening or watching this particular episode of the Chamber of Commerce podcast. Please do keep your eye out for future episodes. Thank you very much.
Thanks.